Hey folks, I'm not an expert in the impeachment. I'm not an expert in the impeachment process. I'm not an expert in constitutional law. I'm not an expert in really anything that's taking place inside the Senate today or yesterday or tomorrow or into the future. But there is something about yesterday's vote that I want to talk about. In the vote yesterday, the vote was for whether or not it was constitutional to try a former president, whether or not it was constitutional to impeach a former president. And 40 some odd Republicans said it is not constitutional to do so. And one of those Republicans was Mitch McConnell. Now again, lots of others did it, but Mitch's case is special. You see, Mitch, in January, was the leader of the majority. He held the power in the Senate. And when the article of impeachment was delivered to the Senate by Congress on January 13th or 14th, he set it aside. He drug his feet on it. He didn't move forward with it. Now the argument may be, well, he didn't think they had time. Listen, he found time to nominate and vote on a new Supreme Court justice within days of the election. He could have found time for this. Truth is, he chose not to. And for what it's worth, he was absolutely, completely within his legal rights to do so. It was completely legal for him not to move forward on it. They had been delivered. Congress had done their job. Now it was up to the Senate at an appropriate time, at a time of their choosing, to do something with this article of impeachment. And Mitch chose to delay until Donald Trump wasn't president again. And that's where the problem comes in. The president was impeached during his term. Mitch McConnell, by delaying the vote, allowed it to become a constitutional question of whether we should continue with the impeachment process of a former president. He used the law to get to a place where he could again try to use the law to achieve his political aim. Was it illegal? It was not illegal. But it was wildly unethical and immoral. Christians are not called to only follow the law. I mean, you've heard me say it a dozen times that Christians are freed from the law of Moses. That when Jesus came, Jesus said, I'm not here to abolish the law, I am here to fulfill it. Which means we are liberated from the law. But in that liberation, there is a cost. And the cost is that we now live according to a deeper principle than the word of the law. We live according to the spirit of the law. And while the laws may say we can do this or we can't do that, we now have the obligation to ask ourselves, even though the law says we can do something, should we? Even though the law tells us we can't do something, should we? Jesus has people coming up to him from time to time saying, I follow the law. And he says, great, you follow the law. You don't cheat on your wife. That's fantastic. But every time you see a woman, you spend an hour and a half fantasizing about being with her that night. It's the same thing. Yes, you're not doing it physically, but in your heart, you are. And that's what matters. See, the law of adultery then all of a sudden becomes, it's not just a physical act, it's a mental act, it's an emotional act, it's a psychological act, as well as physical. Adultery becomes something more than just a sexual impropriety with another person. It becomes something deeper. It becomes something much more nuanced. Jesus says, I know you don't swear. That's fantastic. You don't take the Lord's name in vain. But when something bad happens, what are you thinking? Because that matters too. And so even though you may not utter the words, just thinking the words are enough. He says to the people, it's great. You give your offerings to the church. You give your offerings to the church. You give your offerings to the temple. Fantastic. Just like the law tells you you have to. But you're doing it so that you can get out of helping your parents. You're using the law to get out of helping your parents. You're using the letter of the law to avoid its spirit. We are called to something deeper than the letter of the law. We are called to ask ourselves tough questions about the things we can do and the things we can't do according to the law. Mitch McConnell was well within his legal rights to delay the impeachment process in the Senate. Well within his legal rights to wait until Donald Trump was no longer president so that they could have that first argument about whether or not it's constitutional. And by doing so, he ended up causing yet more division within the country. Because now, for people all over the country, it's not just a question of whether or not the former president incited a riot that led to 5 people dying and 100 more injured, as well as destruction of property and the shaking of ideals. Now it's a matter of, should they even be questioning him? Should they even be trying him? You and I are called to something more. We're called to follow a deeper, more profound, more nuanced, more powerful principle. We are called to wrestle with the Word in order to find the Spirit. This is not a call for the cowardly. It is not a call for the hypocrite. It is a call for the bold and for the courageous. It is a call for the righteous. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you, and may you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that you and I would be willing to wrestle with the Word, to uncover the Spirit, so that the people of this world may come to experience and to know a deeper justice. Amen.